We are back. So thankfully, we didn't have to lose anything on that one, because sometimes that does happen. We are continuing on. This is unofficially part two, Electric Boogaloo. We're down to the final two. Marcus, my second to last, maybe my first, but it's hard to tell. Is No Mercy 2002. Aside from having maybe the worst theme song in the history of wrestling, I'm pretty sure this was the one where the theme song was literally "No Mercy." Yeah, yeah. It was bad, but the main event is fucking great. So good. We'll get there. So the opener was Jericho and Christian as tag team champions versus Booker T and Goldust. Tori Wilson defeated Dawn Marie. Ew. Rob Van Dam versus Ric Flair. Hell yeah. Jamie Noble versus Tajiri. Then you had the title unification match between Triple H and Kane. Unfortunately, this was the Katie Vick era of Kane. So that was a thing. But here's this match. For the inaugural SmackDown Tag Team Championships, you had Benoit and Angle versus Edge and Rey Mysterio. This match was fantastic, and it was following up the 2 out of 3 falls match that they had on SmackDown. And my God, just brilliant, just brilliant. It's so good. Then we had Trish versus Victoria in a match that wasn't great, but it would be a lot better the next month at November's Survivor Series. But Marcus, the main event. Oh, this main event. Oh, this was a solid show leading up to the main event. But the main event puts it over the top. In a Hell in a Cell match, you had The Undertaker versus Brock Lesnar. This is the greatest match between these two men. And they've had some really good bangers, even in modern years when they were like pushing 40 and 50 respectively. But this was their apex. This was the greatest match these two men have ever been in. And they had one of the best spots where Brock jumps up and grabs one of the strafes or scaffolding things that hold the cage ceiling up, and he kicks Taker from it. Oh, it was so cool. Oh, and then like all the blood, and it's just brilliant. Taker has a cast on his
Yeah,
hand. Ah,
yeah. Also, I think the debut of the brilliant, like out of tombstone transitions, where you just flip over and reverse it,
yeah,
and I think Brock like reversed it and
into an
turned it.
F5.
I'm like, this fucking freak. It's not just like when you see it, you like Undertaker has. I don't like somebody would have to ask him when was the last time you were considered small. Undertaker ain't no small dude, man. But Brock with that just Viking like Asgardian strength, country boy freak strength, took him out of a tombstone power drive position and yoked him up with no struggle and finished him. I mean, you got to go watch. Like you said, they've had some great exchanges. And the only thing I would put this next to is their verbal exchange when he was like, "I'll kill you," and you're like, "You're gonna have to," just because of the energy of it. But this match was just it was sick. A
Mm-hmm.
prime Undertaker, a prime Brock. You're not gonna get better than this.
No, not at all. All right, Marcus, second to last. What you got for me?
I'm going back to Mania, but I'm going to me with a Mania that was a defining point in the company. Now, obviously, on the last WrestleMania 23, um, Batista and Cena had the two big matches, two great matches, probably two of their best matches in their careers on the big stage. But this is when 21 is when they were made on the big stage. And
Mm-hmm.
WrestleMania 21 got the Hollywood theme, and the build to it was great. The fanfare of it was great. I think it had one of the best buys of all time, if I'm not mistaken. And the card was good too, man. You had you kicked it off with an interpromotional battle royal. That was pre-show. It kicked it off with Rey Mysterio versus Eddie, and these two have had bangers all throughout the careers. This was not necessarily one of them, only because Ray had a mask issue during the match.
Mm-hmm.
But they did what they could. You're not gonna find a crappy Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio match, but this one only ranks lower because the Ray was. You could tell they was trying to, constantly kept trying to make sure his mask didn't slip off because we know what that is. But kick it off with that. The inaugural Money in the Bank ladder match won by now WWE legend and Hall of Famer Edge, featuring Basically, it's a Shelton Benjamin highlight package, but that's basically what it is. This is the match Shelton Benjamin made his name in, but the Edge will win. Phenomenal. Uh, Great match between Undertaker and Randy Orton, which would go years down. Follow up some years. That was good. This was also a defining feud for Randy Orton. I'm sure the 4 minutes that Trish Stratus had to tangle with Christy Hemme was some of the hardest of her life.
Some of the best of mine.
Hey, amen. But this next match, and again, much like 23, the match of the night was decided like 4 matches before the main event. One of my favorite matches of all time.
Akebono Big Show, yes. Oh, wait.
Get out of my damn head. No, damn it, 3 times. No, Kurt Angle versus Shawn Michaels.
Oof.
To say calling this a banger is undercutting it.
This is.
I can't.
Would you say this is a gang banger?
Oh my God! Because I mean that actually has narrative poignance because Kurt Angle was a one-night rapper, so he could have had some Olympic gang ties, or at least some through Rock of Khan.
I was more thinking his affinity for black women, because I mean you can get blacked in reverse, I guess.
Oh, two thugs named Angle and Hickenbottom, a goon with an Olympic medal and a back issue. Oh, what thing was we? But yeah, man, this match almost went 30 minutes. It is when you look in the wrestling book and you go to the classic section, this match is gonna be there.
It's Appendix A. It's like right there.
It's Appendix A. It's right there, man. This was the first time these two ever met in the ring, singles. I don't know how much they prepped for the match. I know they kind of had a little verbal exchange before the match, but regardless of all that, they went out and absolutely put their foot in the ass of this show. And it's just a match I never get tired of watching. That moment where Angle was just done. This was during that time where Angle was like on a particular streak of meanness.
Mm-hmm.
With that damn mouth guard in. It was just like, got to the point where he was trying to put Michaels away. And he just stood him up. And we all know, you hear me, Michaels? Tap out! And Michael just slaps the hands down, nails him with sweet chin music. Just, that was brilliant. You follow this with goddamn 1 minute. Jesus, this match went 1 minute. So John Cena took on Bradshaw. In a defining moment for the young Thugonomics rapper. Yeah, man, Cena had a great world title reign, but it was time for to put on the big britches, and John is much of a character on and off screen as John Layfield is. He passed the guy the torch.
Mm-hmm.
And John, this was the beginning of what would be an epically long reign and the defining moment because the guy would go on to define the company for the next, 20 years?
Mm-hmm.
Some odd years. So that was him. That was that. And then you finish off the show in another defining match for a budgeting Batista who was coming out of this ends the Evolution saga. Or begins what was going to be the ending to the Evolution saga because of consequent matches. But Batista coming out of Evolution, that great build-up, coming off of a failed Orton attempt at getting him to the World Championship. He just wasn't ready. And even Triple H was calling it like Batista's going to be the guy. Y'all think it's Orton, but it's Batista. So the great build-up to this, getting, Dave playing the big, dumb, buff jock in the thing, and weeks and weeks on, Triple H screwing him over and saying stuff behind his back and thinking he's getting over on Batista. And Batista the whole time was up on game. And one of the best pre-match signings, one of the greatest contract signings, Batista choosing to not go to SmackDown, to stay on Raw, breaking the clipboard, thumbs up, thumbs down, putting him through the Batista bomb through the table. And they get to Mania, man, and this was a great match. Not the best between the two. But Batista won the Royal Rumble and came out and finally dethroned Triple H for what would be the last time as the feud elevated. But for me, WrestleMania 21 is classic. Not only because of the Hollywood theme and the vibes, but this company, for once, definitively defined two new guys that will go on to be two of the biggest stars in the company's history. They made two new guys.
Mm-hmm.
John and Triple H did what they did, great, heels or whatever. But they are a particular era, and that era was over. And they put John and Batista over, and it was two of the best decisions the company ever made. You know.
So you forgot to mention the Hulk Hogan segment, or did you?
I had wiped from my mind, and you just had to. This is the Silver Dome segment.
No, this was the so Hulk Hogan. So basically, Eugene comes out, and he's so happy, and he's talking about King Kong Bundy slamming a bunch of little people, and Muhammad Hassan comes out and puts Eugene in the camel clutch, and then Hogan hits the ring, decked out in an American flag and his red, white, or his yellow and red boa, and he clears the ring, and people are going nuts for it. There was also a Piper's Pit that featured Stone Cold Steve Austin on the show too. I forgot about that. This was a loaded show, even without the promos.
Yeah, man.
Oh, and by the by, the Kurt Angle Shawn Michaels buildup was great because you had Marty Jannetty and Sensational Sherry involved at various points. That was dope. And can we just call the main event Drax the Vampire Slayer? Have you seen my dog? Have you checked the lobby? Triple H as a vampire is tits. It's great.
What did he say? Something about your dick. What do you know? When did you see my dick, suck face?
All right, my last pick. If you know me, it's not a surprise to anyone. My last pick is going to be a WrestleMania, and it's going to be WrestleMania 19. This is, in my opinion, the greatest WrestleMania of all time. It may not have had the best match in promotional history, but I feel like when you look at a show, it has to be based on averages, not singularity events. So this, to me, was the best WrestleMania top to bottom, even if it didn't have like any top 5 WrestleMania matches on it. Although one of them I think is very close. So you had Matt Hardy starting the show against Rey Mysterio, and like here's the opener. The opener was Chief Morley and Lance Storm versus Kane and Rob Van Dam. That was the opener. That was the Heat main event. Then you had Hardy versus Rey Mysterio, Taker versus Big Show and A-Train. That was terrible. Trish Stratus versus Victoria and Jazz. By the way, this was like when Matt Hardy was full blown into the V1. So peak Matt Hardy. Matt Hardy only drinks pulp orange juice. Or maybe it was Matt Hardy doesn't like pulp in his orange. One of those. So then you also had the triple threat Team Angle, Haas and Benjamin versus Chris Benoit and Rhino and Los Guerreros. This is one of the more oddball tag team pairings because Benoit and Rhino were only paired up because both men were coming off of broken necks and neck surgeries. That was it. That was the whole reason why they were a tag team. Then you had a match that everyone thinks is one of Jericho's best matches. I personally think it's a boring-ass match, but whatever. Shawn Michaels versus Jericho. I showed up for the Sweet Chin Music, and I got a schoolboy. Although the ending was great because Jericho was crying, and he hugged Shawn, and then he knees him in the junk. That was great. And maybe their respective best matches in some time. Hulk Hogan and Mr. McMahon had the street fight, where you had that great image of Vince covered in blood with his face just slowly rising above the ring apron. Nowadays, you would get Vince slowly rising above the ring apron, bloodied up. Then you'd see Hogan on the ground. Then you'd see the crowd. Then you'd see Vince again. Then you'd see the announcers. Then you'd see a dog. Then you'd see Vince again. Then you'd see the moon. Because they can't. They're ran by a gerbil on too much Adderall. Like that's who's running the camera department in WWE these days. Back then, they actually took their time and developed the shot. Not so much anymore. Even though Hogan and Vince were in their late 50s, early 50s, they put on a hell of a street fight. And then Piper showed up. That was dope. I like that. I don't like either man in this match. I don't like Vince or Hulk Hogan, but objectively, this was a decent match. Then you had The Rock versus Stone Cold Steve Austin in what should have been Stone Cold Steve Austin's last match. I'm sorry, I will never not say this, but the Kevin Owens match was fucking got off of garbage. And I refuse to acknowledge that it happened. This was a great match, though. This was a fantastic match. This was a match where not only did Rock get his first win over Austin at WrestleMania, it was also because during this event they were filming something called the Mania of WrestleMania, and it was narrated by Jesse Ventura, and it didn't come out until significantly after the event. But in that DVD, you saw, excuse me, you saw Austin and Rock talking about this match after it happened. And after the match, when Rock puts Austin down with like the third rock bottom, he pins him, says something to him, and then gets up and celebrates. And they asked Rock, they're like, Rock, what did you say? And he goes, that's going to be, he said something to the effect like, that's going to be between me and him, or something to that effect. Like, he didn't want to really like dive into it. And they asked Austin, like, what did he say? And Austin's like, he just said, I love you. And I said, I love you too. And like, that was like the kind of moment to me that like really defined who these dudes were as people. And this was also like the culmination and the end of the Attitude Era in that moment. I know we had the Triple H Taker match. What was that? 2012? Jeez, was it that long ago? Where they did the Hell in a Cell at WrestleMania 28. And like everyone's like, that's the end of the Attitude Era, but it was actually this match was the end of the Attitude Era, and it felt so big in that moment, and it felt even bigger when you realize that like this was Austin's last match. Austin nearly died the night before. That's a story that very rarely gets retold. He was having a cardiac event because of the stress, too much energy drinks, and just this sheer magnitude, and he thought he was having a heart attack. And Jim Ross rushed him to the hospital, and Stone Cold even said, like, I thought he was taking me to the hospital to die. So like to think not even 24 hours later, like 16 hours later, he's having one of the best matches of his career, and he's got a bad neck, bad knees, bad back. He almost died the night before. And like the whole match just takes on a whole new life of itself. Like this is one of those like we were joking before the show, like Kevin Nash getting stabbed in The Punisher is such a dope scene because it literally happened. He literally got stabbed. And for Nash to shrug it off like he did in the scene was great. But it adds to the idea of this movie, the scene that they were doing. And just like that, this match was so much more defined by the fact that both men were leaving the company eventually. They were both on their way out. Austin was getting one last run with The Rock. He had all of his health issues. Rock was doing stuff with the Hurricane leading into this match because they couldn't do much with Austin physically. And it just made this match so much more significant. And it's one of the reasons why I think this is the greatest WrestleMania of all time, because this was the end of the greatest era of WWE's history. And that wasn't even the main event, but it should have been. How many shows on this podcast have we talked about had the wrong main event?
Yeah, man.
Main event, though, was pretty good. It was Brock versus Kurt Angle. It wasn't their best match, though. I think they had their Iron Man match was definitely tons better. But this match was good, but it could have been great had it not been for the fact that Brock decided to do his old OVW finish, which was the Shooting Star Press. And Brock does the Shooting Star Press, misses Angle, and lands basically on his head. He didn't rotate correctly, and like his chin and face goes into the mat first, and he falls short. But Brock still has the wherewithal and frame of mind to put his arm around Kurt, and Kurt kicked out. And that was supposed to be the finish. So instead, they do it on the fly, and Brock ends up hitting an F5 on Kurt 30 seconds later to win. And the story behind this is even more fucking bonkers because they show footage in this Mania of WrestleMania of Lesnar after the match, and he's so incensed and so enraged because he has this massive concussion and he doesn't know where he is. And he's throwing people, he's screaming at people, and people are trying to calm him down. And Ric Flair's like, if this dude wasn't the amateur wrestler he was and did all those neck bridges as a wrestler, he would have died. Now, Ric Flair likes to be a bit grandiose and over the top, but I do believe that had his neck not been as strong as it was, he would have died because he landed straight on his head. So
Yeah, this was just a. I mean, you look at how he was built. Like his traps had traps. Um, but this was like when you call Brock a true freak. It's because of that.
mhm.
That moment because he either should have knocked himself into forever unconsciousness or something else. And the fact that he was just loopy and it got up, the fact that he even finished the match
Yeah.
the way that he did, had the wherewithal because I guess that's momentum and what they call it not momentum when you're hot, adrenaline. There it is,
Yeah.
adrenaline. All that adrenaline and just winging it like this. It's insane, man. But it's another one of the moments where it's like Brock is not of this world, man. He's not, and kudos to Kurt Angle for because it take two. He could have waved stuff off, or he could have put himself over. But Brock needed to go over, and he went over. Thankfully, nobody died that night, specifically him.
Oh, and this was potentially Kurt Angle's last match as well, because he was going in for career-saving neck surgery that they didn't know was going to work because it was experimental at the time. So this very well could have been Kurt's last match. And for all the shit Brock gets, Kurt always says that I never feared for my safety with Brock. So that's why he was going to do this last match before his major surgery, because he knew Brock would protect him. And he did.
Yeah.
Brock just couldn't protect himself.
Oh man.
All right. Take us home. Country Road, last pay-per-view. What do we got?
I'm going real off the beaten path with this one, but if you know me, this is vintage Marcus. This is going to be an abbreviated finale. It's not technically a pay-per-view, but because of the type of show it was, it should have. I'm going with the first ever Ultima Lucha.
I had already typed it in when you started talking. If you know me, and I'm like, yes, I do. It was a great show.
Man. Yeah, man. Look, Lucha. This was Lucha Underground's first season with 39 episodes. These Ultima Luchas was 2-parters, and like the Lucha Underground was really a revelation. Nobody really knew what it was going into it. Then you watch it, and it's kind of, it's almost like a wrestling telenovela, if you will, almost. Obviously on the Unamas channel, El Rey Network. And very much familiar concepts and things for wrestling fans, but very much Lucha inspired and geared towards that audience. But also some other colorful characters in there, literal colorful characters in Big Rick and friends.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, man, you get to this is the finale of 37 episodes worth of storytelling of a wrestling of a television show with wrestling in it, and it was brilliant. And you got matches like Falls Count Anywhere with Cage and Willie Mack. Now this didn't even go 10 minutes, but you felt every minute of the 7 minutes and 43 seconds that it did. You got the Disciples of Death going against Helico, Evilise, and Son of Havoc in a Tornado Rules trios match, which you just got to go back and watch. I don't even want to talk about it. Just go back and watch that. Believers Backlash and Drago versus Hernandez, and that ends the first night. Over to the second night, you got Johnny Mundo versus Alberto El Patron, Pentagon versus Vampiro in the Seal medal match, which was great.
Oh, Marcus, this match.
Yeah.
This was not only the best match of the cards for me, but this was the start of Pentagon becoming Pentagon Dark.
Oh, absolutely.
And the reveal, I think, is like Pentagon was taking orders from a mysterious figure off screen. And I think it was implied that even Pentagon didn't know who it was. Yeah. And then when he defeats Vampiro then reveals that he's the one pulling the strings and that this whole match was designed to see if Pentagon could truly be his true disciple. I'm like, oh, that is straight movie right there. Oh.
And you're right. That was the best thing on the show. Wasn't the main event, but again
not the main event.
Back here. because the storytelling. Like I remember watching at the beginning of Lucha Underground. Pentagon was the coolest looking guy taking losses that made no sense. He
Mm-hmm.
couldn't beat Drago in the first half of that first season.
And
He was
Drago
struggling. Yeah,
the booster of the luchadors in this. Like, no one liked him. Like,
yeah.
Drago was cool as shit, but he was not. He was booster.
Pentagon was struggling to get wins against Drago, Aerostar, other guys. It's like this guy looks too cool to be taking these kind of L's. And then he eventually gets tired of it and seeks out help, which we would then, we did know at the time was Vampiro. So he starts talking to this guy in the shadows, and he's great, vignettes and stuff. And he starts picking up wins and starts picking up momentum. He starts being that dude, and his theme music was rocking, and he started breaking people's arms and whatnot. I think in his first season,
Mm-hmm.
if he didn't, he kept coming off cool like a badass because he was racking up wins and he picked up some swag, and it was great. Then it builds to this whole thing with Vampiro. It was just great throughout all this, and like you said, this match, it was brilliant, it was violent, it was bloody, and you cap it off with him being ultimately the master. And it was the perfect setup the way they was going in that second season. And like you said, the beginning of Pentagon Dark, who for us is classic, but it's kind of classic in the realm of Lucha Underground because outside of that, not necessarily that same swag, if you will. You follow that match with Phoenix, who was very much, if Penta was the building to be the big bad, Phoenix was the big good, or one of the big goods. But he ended up defeating Aerostar, Bengala, Big Rick, Jack Evans, King Cuerno, Sexy Star, and the first ever Gift of the Gods match. Great stuff. Then you transition into Blue Demon Jr. versus El Tejano. Shout out to Nasty B. I'm sorry, Famous B.
Famous. I was like, that's a deep cut right there.
Yeah, 1-800 get fame. Then you finish off with again the ultimate villain of Lucha Underground versus the ultimate hero. Mil Muertes with the always fine, eternally fine Katrina versus Prince Puma. 17 minutes 40 seconds in just a great closer. Defeated by Mil Muertes because the man is a force. If you've seen him, you get it. And it finished off really, true great season of TV for a debuting show, which was a TV show featuring wrestling. But ultimately, by the time you got done with this Ultima Lucha 1, it really was a true alternative in the world of wrestling where people had been seeking it for so long in other places. And they really put their stake in the ground and made people take note of what they were doing in there, man. It was just, it was a great time to be a wrestling fan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hell of a last show. I think Lucha Underground had some of the best moments in wrestling history.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's kind of buried in this kind of muck that people like, because there was a lot of drivel and dreck in this show. I don't want to sit here and be like it's the greatest wrestling show ever, because it's not. But when it was good, it was on par with anything.
Yeah.
Especially again, like the moment we always talk about, the Angelico office ceiling leap where he jumps off of Dario Cueto's office into the ring, and then Vampiro's sprinting up and down the aisles, just losing his ever-loving mind. Oh, it was great.
It's literally one of those moments where I have the same reaction I did the first time each time I watch.
He jumps like 15 feet. Like the man should not have made that jump.
Perfectly nails it. It's like the hardest have a move called poetry in motion, but that's what it actually is.
And who took it? Ricky Reyes?
Yeah, man. I want to say it was the
or was it the dude that Matanza just snapped?
It might have been one of the dudes Matanza just that. Was this the match, or was it? Did they do it at Dose?
No, they did it in the Trios title tournament before Ultima Lucha, because they came in as champions from that win.
Oh yeah, because this was doing the thing, and this happened a lot, and I wish it would have been a gimmick, but because Evilise kept getting habitually injured,
Mm-hmm.
and it basically ended up being like came down to a handicap match with had Son of Havoc and Helico, and they was losing, they was down, and freaking that Helico came in clutch.
Mm-hmm.
Clutch, and that clip will never get old. Vampiro was every single fan watching and every single fan in that building.
I want to say. I want to say it was Ballet, B-boy. I think it was B-boy who ended up taking the spot. It was
Yeah.
wild. It was absolutely wild to see because it was one dude leaping up to catch Angelico with his gut, and it was spectacular. It was absolutely spectacular. The final match was Big Rick, Killshot, and the Mac versus Son of Havoc, Evilise, and Angelico, and King Cuerno, Cage, and Tejano. No, I'm sorry. That was the lead up. Why is this not? Yeah, okay. So the finals was Son of Havoc versus Evilise and Son of Havoc, Evilise, and Angelico versus the Crew, which was Bale, Cortez Castro, and Mr. Cisco. And I think it was Mr. Cisco was the one who caught Angelico. And that was just one of those moments where you're like, yeah, they're both dead. They're both dead. But it was awesome. I love it. I love it. Marcus, no news tonight. It's late. Is there anything though you want to touch on before we head off?
No, I think that pretty much so. Anything else was developing. I think we talked about certain things before the show, but like I said, that's stores are developing. But this was fun, man. This was fun. Go great trip down memory lane. Truly some great wrestling we have been alive for to witness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So Kurt Angle's on Raw?
Yeah, man. Full regalia. Got to do a little segment with the Street Profits and his pseudo son Chad Gable with the big man.
Hmm.
And got to watch on the sidelines the Street Profits beat him after the match. Tried to drink something out of the red cup, spit it out, not his particular flavor, and brought some milk to the show. So they was in his hometown, So
So I also want to figure out what's going on with Dexter Loomis because this whole psycho gimmick might be my favorite thing in the company right now. I think Sam Shaw's fantastic.
he don't get talked about enough.
He really doesn't. He's an actual character.
It's people who got good gimmicks, but it's few people who are as good at their characters as he is, and it's disturbing how good he is. And I'm like, is he playing? I don't think he's playing.
This was always kind of what they wanted him to be in TNA when they did the Christy Hemme, Mr. Anderson stuff. But this is perfect because he was trying to be creepy. Like he was like stroking her hair and like, I'd love to cut your hair and oh, you look so beautiful. And it just kind of came off as contrived. But this is great because he doesn't talk, but he emotes with like the best actions. He doesn't change his expression either. And like the one time I remember, like somebody was saying something to him, and instead of just agreeing or nodding, he just gives him a thumbs up. And it was so haunting. I'm like, oof. I was like Mr. Burns, and I was like, he's excellent.
It's funny because ultimately he was finding this character in Impact.
Yeah.
And in Impact, ironically enough, like you said, it really wasn't working. And God bless her, Christy did what she could and selling the fear and all that. Obviously she was in no real danger. It's not like somebody was putting their crotch in her face.
Yeah.
In any of the segments. Fucking douche. But yeah, he was coming off like the creepy skinny man in the Charlie's Angel movie.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's full on. He defines it. It's brilliant. And never let this man do anything else. It's perfect. And he's a hell of an artist too.
Yeah. Yeah, he did a lot of the illustrations for the NWA.
Yeah, one of my favorite shows Impact ever did featured his art as when they put up the graphics for the matches. Featured his art for the graphics. The man's brilliant. Yeah.
Really? Do you remember what show?
I don't. It was an episode of Impact, but I don't remember the show. Hopefully we can look it up. But Yeah, he was doing like the little Sabins and little, yeah, it was good.
'Cause I know they featured Jeff Hardy's art, and it was there. It may have been better than his music. I ain't saying
Which, to their credit, they let him be an artist. They let him go into his barrel of characters, and they let him do his art.
his characters
And
were
that,
great.
yeah,
Everything else
his ti-
was
his title design choice is not so much.
no, no.
Yeah.
But that's his art. So like, what are you gonna do? All right, realnerdcorp.com, realnerdcorp.com. We're on Twitter at nerdcorp. We are on our personal accounts. Marcus, you can be found on Paradox Kid on Twitter, PARADOXKID.
That's me.
You can also find me on Twitter at Chad Nerdcorp, ChadNerdCorp, and on the Instagram at Chad's Photo Hut. Marcus, you have another show. It's called the True Penny Show. You can find them on Twitter at True Penny. Is that right? TRUEP.
Yeah.
Is it True Penny or True Penny Show on Twitter?
Yeah, True Penny Show on
Okay.
Twitter. TruePennyShow.
There it
Yeah,
is.
check us out. Me and James just review Gleet, two of their shows.
Gleet?
Yeah, Gleet. It's a Japanese promotion, and all the shows are free on YouTube. Check it out if you get the chance. It's some real good stuff on Glee. Yeah, but we just did 2 Glee shows, and he ran through the whole G1 practically by himself. Had some other people come on, but practically by himself. So yeah, a ton of content over there. Go check it out. It's as good as the content over here. Promise.
So check that out. It might be better than the content over here. Let's be honest. they don't have to deal with my internet. All right, so we're done. Next week, I think we should do the top 10 terrible shows that we enjoy. Because I really want to talk about WCW in the early 2000s.
Yeah, I'm actually looking forward to that because I was not there for that, or I wasn't checked in for that. So that's gonna be fun going through listening to those stories. And as an Impact fan in the early 2000s, I also had plenty to pull from.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of bad wrestling shows that I love, and I'm sure like there are gonna be some real obscure picks on this, and I cannot wait. I cannot wait to hear Marcus's top 10 on this one.
And to be fair, over the last 10 years, WWE has given us some of the worst shows 10 years straight.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, we could be biased. We're gonna spread the love, but we really could. We could pick a year in the last maybe 5 years and then just go through shows back to back. But we're better than that. We want to be better for you than that, and we're gonna spread the love.
We're barely better than that. Just barely. All right. For Mark Shane, I'm Chad Porter. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for checking us out. Thanks for giving us a chance. Remember, as always, to watch more wrestling. And Marcus, take us home.
Good night, me.